Okay, you need to play the opening. It's not working. Okay, hold on. Let me just try and reset the system quickly. Just give me a second.
From Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour.
With your host,
Alexander.
Well, that did the trick. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 236, week 13 of 2026. I'm Alexander Leipner, and welcome to our first-time listeners. If that's you, well, drop us a line on WhatsApp, 084-726-3866, or drop us a line on one of the social media channels. Not going to embarrass you, not going to call you out, but it's just good to hear from you. Drop us a hello, an emoji, and it's great to have you part of the show. And of course, if you're a regular listener, part of the Sandton Times Hour Nation, we're always happy to have you tune in Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa and everywhere else in the world. If you're online or on air, wherever you are, I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land. As those regular listeners know, Vincenzo joins us behind the mixing desk again, back for another week. And I'm not sure about you, but wow, I've had a hectic week, been battling with the flu this whole week. I think it's the mixed weather combined with just a lot going on, and before you know it, you are flat in bed, and try to squeeze some work in here or there, but mostly in bed with meds, resting it out. So if you're also on the mend, or you've got the flu, or you're trying to recover, or you have recovered, well, sending you best wishes and a speedy recovery, either which way. I did manage to catch the LIV Golf on the weekend, which was sensational at Steyn City. If you had a chance to go, I would love to get your feedback. 084-726-3866. Drop us a WhatsApp, voice note, or text message. Would love to know what your experience was. But I also managed to drag myself behind the scenes to a menu tasting of Air France's business class menu, which was a fascinating look behind the scenes of airline catering. You have no idea what goes into getting a plate of food at 36,000 feet in the sky on an intercontinental flight for 12 hours. It was just so interesting. And I did say we're going to try and get these caterers on to a show. It's going to take us a little bit longer in terms of a conversation because there's so much to chat about. The science, the art, it is just mind-blowing. Then Bang & Olufsen, they also opened their global first showroom in Sandton, which is absolutely gorgeous, showcasing all their latest tech in sort of an apartment environment. But right now, let's take a look at what's up during the next hour. He was the left-hand man to Sol Kerzner, and he has released a brand new book on working with the Sun King. I'll be chatting to him shortly. Then, with LIV Golf wrapping up an incredible debut in South Africa, I'll share one of the interviews I got on the weekend, so stick around for that. As always, I then catch up with our regular entertainment commentator to take a look at the latest movies to hit the cinema screens. And finally, I take a look at the newest cruise ship to come online this year and how South Africans have developed a taste for the high seas. An exemplary hour up ahead for you. And as always, like to hear from you. So do get in touch. Use that WhatsApp number, 084-SANTON. That's 084-726-3866. And send through your questions, comments, or feedback. You can also use the email address editor@sandtontimes.co.za. And don't forget to connect on social media at Sandton Times. And hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za. And if you're not part of the podcast community yet, be sure to subscribe and get the Sandton Times Hour on your device like clockwork every single week. You can get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, AfroPods, Podcast Party, and many more. And on this note, let me just a big shout out to some of our big listeners coming out of the United States, Nigeria, Qatar. Unbelievable to have you on board. I've wanted to send you a shout out for so long, but you are competing head to head with our South African listeners, and it's good to have you listening every single week. And like them, be sure to like and share.
from Greater Sandton to the rest of the world. This is the Sandton Times Hour.
For decades, few people stood closer to the extraordinary world of Sol Kerzner than hotel executive and author Peter Venison. From the rise of legendary destinations like Sun City and the Palace of the Lost City to global landmarks such as the Atlantis Paradise Island and the one and only Royal Mirage, Venison had a front row seat to one of the most audacious chapters in the history of luxury hospitality. Now, in a book titled Escaping the Sun, My Life Beyond Sol Kerzner, written with acclaimed South African author Melinda Ferguson, Venison lifts the curtain on a life spent in the orbit of a larger-than-life titan. The book follows his award-winning bestseller, Sol, My Friend and Adversary, but this time the spotlight shifts firmly onto Venison himself, his ambitions, his battles, and ultimately his search for identity beyond one of the world's most formidable business figures. It's partly a memoir, partly an insider account of a global hospitality empire, and Escaping the Sun travels from bomb-scared Beirut to palaces in Dubai, from high-stakes boardroom battles to encounters with icons, including Giorgio Armani, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali. It's a story of ambition, loyalty, rivalry, and the complicated gravity of genius. Peter Venison, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's really wonderful to have you join us all the way from the UK. And maybe let's kick things off. This new book, Escaping the Sun, it follows an earlier bestseller around Sol Kerzner's life. But what made you feel it was time to tell the story from your own perspective?
What happened, Alexander, was that a lot of people got in touch with me, having read the Sol, the book you mentioned, and said, we didn't know as much about you as we gathered from the book, and we'd like to know more. I was a bit resistant, to be honest, but Melinda Ferguson, my co-writer here and publisher, felt that this was a good idea, that there was a lot, it threw up a lot of interest, strangely enough, in me, and people were saying, tell us more about you. So that's why we got into it.
Peter, maybe for those listening who need a bit of context and a bit of an idea of where we're at on the global timeline, what years are we talking about right here? It sounds like it's very much at Sol Kerzner's, call it peak, at the time that he was really turning out incredibly large projects.
I started working with Sol way before that, really right at the beginning of the company Southern Sun. And that was back in 1970, 71, when I first worked with him. He approached me. I was the manager of a hotel in London, the Carlton Tower, which is a luxury hotel there. And he'd stayed there and had an unfortunate incident with my laundry. So I got to meet him, and that led to him asking me if I'd come and join him when Southern Sun started to get going. So it was some years later that we got into the casino business, really kicked off by the Sun City Resort, the first phase of the Sun City Resort. Sol always had in his mind there were going to be more than one phase. Most people didn't think the first phase would survive, but it did, as everybody knows, and still there. So that period, the period really, yes, he was at his peak, let's say, going from Sun City opening and going forward. And I was with him on and off during that period.
How would you describe your relationship with Sol during those years?
It was very, very complex, really. I admired him a great deal. He was very, very good at what he did. He was a very difficult man to work with. You had to stand up for yourself. Most people couldn't. In many cases, people couldn't live with him, at work, I mean, and privately, of course. He was a hard man to work for, but a man one had to admire, because there were so many good things about him, and the good things by far outweighed the difficult things.
From Sun City to Atlantis in the Bahamas, I mean, you were involved in quite a few iconic resorts, but which project stands out as the most challenging or most transformative for you personally? I mean, does it get easier the more you do these projects, or do they all have their own sort of challenges?
Everyone has a challenge. You've got to expect when you are doing a mega resort, even a smaller resort or hotel, you know that the opening is going to be sullied by some problem or other. It might be a problem with the plumbing, it might be a problem with the staff, whatever it is, you know you're going to expect trouble. So you're on the lookout for trouble. But if you say what was the best experience, let's say, without any question, it was doing the last phase of the Sun City in South Africa, which was the Lost City. Without question, all of the consultants that worked on that job, and most of them were from overseas. We went around the world and looked for the best people we could find. And we found, I think, the best architect. We found the best interior designer, the best engineer, and so on and so forth. We weren't ashamed to copy and change and alter and improve. But without question, if you approach those people today, the ones that are still alive, that is, and say, what was the highlight of your professional career? Without doubt, they will say the Lost City at Sun City.
Unbelievable. And it's still to this day an icon, I think, in South African hospitality.
Yeah. No, I know people thought it was sort of plastic, and they knocked on the wall and found out it wasn't. It was real concrete.
And that's why I think it stood for so many years. That's why it's still standing to this day. Was there ever a moment when you realized just how extraordinary your professional life had become? I mean, we've basically touched on a few of these incredible people and incredible places you've ended up. But did you ever have a moment where you just took a step back and looked at all of this and thought, my goodness, this is just surreal?
Well, I have to say I have been exceptionally lucky. There are lots of times I've looked back and said how lucky I was. On the other hand, you do tend to make your own luck. I've been blessed with having have lots of opportunities have cropped up. I've gone for them. There are lots of cases, I think I say this in the book, where I wished I'd gone for them. Things that I had thought of that someone else did because I didn't go forward when I should have gone forward. But that said, there were many that I did actually do. There's no iconic moment or anything that I could say, but I have to just say I've been lucky. I was in the right place at the right time and learned the lessons that had to be learned.
I'm glad you touched on the lessons, because I was going to ask you about the lessons that were learned during that time. Are there any that you still think are very much relevant for hoteliers and developers, even in 2026?
Yes, I think there are many. I think we have to be very careful of AI in the business going forward. I always say the opposite of satisfaction is not dissatisfaction. You don't satisfy people in the hotel business by giving them what they expect. You satisfy them by giving them what they don't expect, the things beyond that they expect. I think we're running into danger in the industry where we give people what they expect and forget the things that they don't expect, if you see what I mean, the good things. There's a danger when financiers take over any industry. We've seen it recently with the veterinary industry, for example, where financiers thought during COVID it'd be a good idea to buy up lots of vets. What's happened is the price of going to a vet has gone up sky high and the quality's gone down. That tended to happen for a while and has happened to some extent in the hotel business, where financiers are in control, not hoteliers.
Is there a particular story or a particular part of the book that stands out for you that you either enjoyed writing or that you think is something that people should maybe reread more than once?
That's a difficult question. I enjoyed writing it all, to be honest.
After a career that is spent helping build monumental destinations, what does legacy mean to you today? And what do you hope readers take away from Escaping the Sun, apart from a good read?
I think if you take away anything, they should take away that if you have an idea, then go for it, act on it. Don't just dwell on, I had a good idea and I didn't do anything about it. There is a chapter in this book. It's a short chapter, but it's sort of it is regretting things I didn't do. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I had this idea years and years ago. This was prior to the Soweto riots, that it would be helpful if we could put together a team to build a yacht and send a mixed race through to challenge for the America's Cup. And one of the reasons I did that was I'd been to Newport Beach at some point before, and I'd seen a sign over a door that said whites only. And I thought, well, that's ironic. You know, here we are in America with a sign that says whites only, and we're in South Africa being criticized for everything, quite rightly in lots of cases, of course. And I thought, well, let's put together a team of people who can sail a yacht. And even though we might not win the America's Cup back from America, we'll at least make a statement that we can do it with a mixed race crew. And I got all that together with the help of the Sunday Times. It was taking a lot of money. We were trying to raise the money, but it was on the way. And then came the Soweto riots and the bottom fell out of the markets and everything else. So I had to abandon the idea. I shouldn't have abandoned the idea. I should have picked it up and run with it again. But, time passes and you're doing something else. And I can give you a whole list of things of that nature that I think I called it should have, could have, or something like that. There are many, many times where you get an idea. It turns out it was a good idea. And before you know it, someone else has done it. So when you get an idea, do it yourself. Get on with it.
I think that's some great and very sage advice there from Peter Venison. His latest book, Escaping the Sun. Don't forget to pick it up. You can get it online or even at all good bookstores. And another look at the life of Sol Kerzner through a very different lens. And I think you're going to find it quite riveting. And Peter Venison, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
LIV Golf South Africa lit up Steyn City this past weekend with over 90,000 fans hitting the greens and bringing a vibe and energy unlike anything South African golf has ever seen. Complemented by an array of non-golf activities, the event was a roaring success as attendees could watch some of the best golf along with concerts, food markets, activations by various brands and hospitality like only South Africa can serve up. I had a chance to catch former South African professional rugby player Bryan Habana, who teamed up with the Southern Guards, South Africa's very own team at LIV Golf, comprising of golfing heavyweights Louis Oosthuizen as captain, and the team Brandon Grace, Dean Burmeister, and Charles Swartzel. I asked Bryan to give me his impressions of LIV Golf's debut in South Africa.
I am blown away. My first ever LIV experience, and getting to stand on top of that first hole Thursday morning, seeing Louis and Charles tear up for what is not only an inaugural golf tournament, but probably the biggest golf event that South Africa has ever seen. The best field, we've seen 57 players, major winners scattered across all, Phil Mickelson, fan favorite Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, Louis, Charles, Sergio Garcia. It is just mind-blowing, and getting to be inside the inner sanctum with the Southern Guards team as an ambassador and playing the Pro-Am on Wednesday with Dean Burmeister, Lucas Herbert, Andre Pollard in my team as well. I'm blown away. I love golf. I'm not good at it, but I absolutely love what it means, from a sporting perspective in terms of discipline, being able to have that next job mentality, the social element thereof. But this tournament opening up the game of golf in such a different way to what I've ever understood and known the game of golf. Black coffee last night, you got Calvin Harris this evening, and it is just phenomenal. So if this is the first one, the biggest day one crowd LIV has ever seen on Thursday morning, and that is even with a 2-hour move forward start time for the shotgun start. That's the start. I cannot wait for what the future holds.
But this is definitely more than golf. I mean, there's people here that I don't think are avid golf watchers. I mean, it's much bigger than just a game of golf.
It is, and I love positive disruption, and I think LIV have absolutely positively disrupted the game of golf for the better. You look at the fan experience, not only on the golf course, the music, Lions Den, the party hall, Dean Burmeister pulling on the new Adidas Bafana Soccer World Cup jersey and almost getting a hole in one. The fan village, I mean, you had anything from a skate park to a rugby catching competition. It was just putting greens. I've never in my life seen anything like it, and I also don't think, I look at the infrastructure, I think there's very few golf courses in South Africa that would have been able to handle the magnitude of what LIV has brought to our shores. And if this is the first, I absolutely cannot wait for where we're going.
And Steyn City also has that visual appeal, right? It looks amazing on television. This is going out to international audiences. So this is definitely putting South Africa on the map in more ways than one.
In so many more ways than one. I think you talk about putting things on the map. I got to be in the Steyn house on Wednesday evening for the green room experience. And, when you're on the 12th green and you sort of look up at this absolute majestic castle, and you then get to be on this vantage point overlooking the whole course. I think we've got some of the most incredible golf courses, in my opinion, in the world in South Africa. The Leopard Creeks of the world, Fancourt Links of the world. There's just so many spectacular golf courses, but this has just been magnificent in every understanding. The ability to house more than 100,000 people over the course of this weekend. I mean, the stage setup is something like I don't even think I've ever seen a golf course with a stage as big as that, let alone a normal music concert. So it has opened up the game of golf to such a bigger audience, and South Africa, we know, has the most diverse audience. But there'll be people that have experienced golf for the very first time in their life, and the game of golf in South Africa will grow because of that. And being very closer to the team and hearing how proud Louis, Charles, Dean and Brandon are, but how they've been unrelentless in remembering their roots, how grateful they are for what the game of golf in South Africa has done for their development to bring this tournament here, what the Sunshine Tour has meant to their own personal development as professional golfers, and how they are just prideful with being South African, and they wanting to put South Africa on the map in a very different perspective. But this is as special as it comes.
As a sporting professional yourself, what are your hopes, dreams and aspirations for LIV Golf in South Africa going forward?
There have been so many stakeholders that have been critically key in bringing this tournament to South Africa. Our Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, Gate Mackenzie, has been very vocal over the last year about how big this event can be. Louis has had this burning desire to bring this tournament. We potentially thought 2028 to 2029. Scott O'Neill from LIV Golf has been unwavering in his commitment to make sure that the tournament got here. So having it just so quickly, I think got a lot of people unawares. More than 100,000 people that will be crossing through these gates over the 4 days. It's the biggest day one crowd LIV has ever seen, and that isn't with a 2-hour, move closer time slot. If this is the start, I cannot wait for where it's going, because it is going to be absolutely ginormous in every way. I think the acts are, the music acts are only going to get better. The infrastructure might get better as we go on, but hopefully this tournament means that the game of golf has been opened up to new audiences, and those audiences will learn to love golf in a totally different way, and that means that the game of golf is going to be better because of it. So privileged and honoured to be a part of the Southern Guards sort of inner sanctum, but more importantly, I think the pride with which they've brought this tournament to South Africa, the pride with which they're carrying the hopes and dreams of a nation, but the pride with which they now experience the game of golf being open to such a diverse South African audience will mean that golf at the end of the day is left in a better place, because there's a new audience that's now been captured.
That was Bryan Habana at the LIV Golf at Steyn City this past weekend. Congratulations to Chris Bentley and the team at LIV Golf South Africa for putting on an impressive and world-class event. And LIV Golf South Africa is back next year. They've announced it 22 to 25 April 2027. I believe tickets are already on sale, and if you've missed it this year, you will not want to miss it next year. It truly stands shoulder to shoulder with some of the best sporting events overseas, and we can proudly say South African fans just know how to bring the gees and also make visiting sports stars feel right at home. One man that escaped me for an interview was Scottish DJ Calvin Harris, and let me tell you, I really tried to get an interview with Calvin Harris. It would have been amazing, but he also performed late on Saturday evening at LIV Golf after bursts of rainfall, and I think at one point people thought it's not going to happen, but it did. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to chat to him, but also I'm sorry that I missed his performance.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
And as we head into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner, and if there's anything that sounded interesting, exciting, refreshing, but you didn't get the details, well, hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za, check out the show notes, which we try and get up as soon as we can. Forgive us if we don't always get it up on time, but it does take some time to compile all the information as it comes out on the show, but it'll be there. And you get a breakdown, further reading, links, etc., and more to read. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts, which is always a good idea, at Sandton Times on your preferred platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, X, whatever. You pick yours and follow us there. And then there's the WhatsApp line, 084 Sandton, 084 726 3866, 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes, text messages, and more. Right, it's time to connect with Tat Wolfen, our regular entertainment commentator. And Tat, it's been another prosperous week at the movies, I hope.
Well, certainly this last weekend has something that's really excited me. Now, you know how when you blow up a balloon and you hold the end tight, right? And then you release it, and that balloon goes everywhere. So I'm afraid that's what you're going to have to do with me today. You're going to have to just release your fingers and let me go insane, because I'm in a very happy rant mode.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let me put my seatbelt on and let's do it. Let's release the air.
Okay, I want to talk about the latest IMAX release, and it's called the Hail Mary Project that just opened this last weekend. So off I trotted to the IMAX at the Mall of Africa, which has become one of my regular hangouts these days. And yes, it's going to be showing in other theaters as well, but it was shot with IMAX in mind, and it certainly looks and sounds so handsome in IMAX, with a very spatial sound mix that actually widens the soundstage so incredibly that the walls of the cinema feel as though they've been pushed far outwards. And the visuals are also meant for the big screen. So, if you're waiting to watch this movie on streaming, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So what is the movie about? In a nutshell, it's about a regular old school science teacher, a very exciting teacher. So he knows how to involve his kids, and they certainly love him. But he's come up with some very interesting theories about space science, which has attracted NASA's interest.
Okay.
And he unwillingly gets roped into a NASA venture, which has targeted the outer space version of a virus, which is gradually attacking the sun. Like it or not, he is sucked up into the system. Now, I want to just tell you, I have so many wild and random thoughts about the movie. So one of them was that the movie has no rough language in it, which is quite refreshing. Okay?
Yeah, very pleasant.
I would say that it's great for the family, but not for little kids, because it still has lots of sort of intense scenes with the spaceship, on fire and things being noisy and action-filled. So it's not for small kids, but it's quite wholesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing that you have to worry about in that sense. Another interesting thing about it is that it co-stars a bunch of international stars, such as the German actress Handra Hüller, Milana Vaintrub, the Uzbekistan-born American actress and filmmaker, and various other actors of international heritage. But of course, I haven't mentioned the star of the movie, Ryan Gosling.
Okay.
Now, for me, this movie would have been awful if it had starred some po-faced superstar such as Tom Cruise. But the lovely thing about Ryan Gosling is that he just takes on a character and becomes a character, because he doesn't have this huge persona outside of movies. So he's not one of these stars that's always ramping and preening outside of his movies. He's not always preaching his political views. So he's just like a sponge, maybe, that takes on whatever role the movie demands of him. Okay. And he's also not like wildly heroic. He's like an every guy, kind of a James Stewart character that we can all relate to. So he was just perfect for the movie. If you ask me to describe the movie, well, it doesn't really settle into a particular style or genre. Now, normally you would think that this kind of thing would alienate you, because it's like, what is this movie about? What is its style? But actually that intrigued me, and it made me sit forward. And there's loads of humor in the film, which is as it should be, because so many science fiction movies are so serious, But this film knows that if there are people involved, there have to be smiles and jokes. So there's lots of chuckling to be done throughout the movie. And it's also very much a movie buff's movie. So now, even though the MGM studio has been swallowed up by Amazon, they still respect the MGM legacy. And they even start the movie not with this new MGM logo of the recent 2000s, but they start it with Leo the Lion roaring. Leo, who used to open the MGM movies from the mid-50s to the mid-80s.
Yeah.
There are also blatant references to 2001: A Space Odyssey. And you have to remember that MGM was quite a pioneering movie when it came to science fiction movies if we're looking back to sort of the 60s and forward, I mean, there obviously was 2001. There were movies such as the original Westworld with Yul Brynner. It was a kind of a pioneer, I suppose, of science fiction concepts going back a few decades. And again, Amazon has respected that legacy. You know, there's so many aspects of this movie that I could rant about and will rant about. The original score by Daniel Pemberton is also so different. You know, with an epic movie of this nature, you might expect the movie to bring in Hans Zimmer, you know, with his aggressive, in-your-face heroics. But the score surprises as well. And there are also a whole lot of retro songs that are brought into the soundtrack, such as Chris Christopherson, Oasis, and gobsmackingly Miriam Makeba doing Pata Pata.
Okay.
And it's just so incredible to hear Miriam Makeba on the IMAX screen. They also bring in some gospel songs, because the movie does actually have an underlying, I suppose you could say, religious theme that's never in your face, but it's, you know, it's certainly there. I was expecting this hard-nosed sci-fi movie, whereas it's actually like a Disney family movie from the 1960s wearing the robes of 2001: A Space Odyssey. If that throws you, it certainly threw me as well, in the most positive way. And I think that it's going to be the kind of movie that people are going to be referencing in 50 years' time. You know how today you'll watch documentaries and then they'll show you a clip from Citizen Kane, or they'll show you a clip from Space Odyssey. And I think that this is one of those movies that people are going to be referencing, because, you know, if you watch the stuff that just trudges through our cineplexes these days, that just reek of sameness, this movie is original, it's funny, it's exciting, and it just goes all over the place. You know, you think it's going in X direction and then suddenly it veers off in Y direction. I got to tell you, it just blew me into the outer stratospheres. It's a remarkable movie that on a surface reading shouldn't work, but it does. And it's out on IMAX screens. Yes, it's also showing in other screens. And obviously, IMAX is a bit more expensive than regular movie theaters. But if you can afford that bit extra, it's honestly worth the experience. The Hail Mary project was made to be seen in IMAX. And I want to tell you, I walked out of that theater on a cushion of air.
Tremendous.
I loved it.
Amazing, Tat. So there you have it, Project Hail Mary, our highly recommended movie for the week. And it's not often that Tat spends his entire segment talking about one movie. So then this must be a really good one. And like you say, even better to see on the big screen with the big sound in IMAX or in one of the privés or those sort of VIP seats where you can put your feet up and you can get the full astronaut feel while you're watching this movie. So, Tat, that sounds amazing. And hopefully we'll catch up again next week and you'll be coming down back to Earth.
Hopefully by then I will be down to Earth, because there are a lot of earthly tasks that need to be done.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Have you ever considered taking a cruise for your next holiday? Well, as many regular listeners might know, I've been talking about this topic since the fading months of lockdown. And this week I joined the Royal Caribbean team for a dinner in Sandton to take a look at their latest megaship to launch in July 2026. It's called Legend of the Seas, and I got some very interesting insights. So, despite all that we hear in the news, South Africa remains a very interesting market for the cruise industry, with South African travelers continuing to play a key role in Royal Caribbean's growth, delivering strong demand and high-value bookings. Now, Cruises International, which has specialized exclusively in cruising for over 2 decades and represents Royal Caribbean here in South Africa and across the continent, they highlighted the importance of the local market during this event. And South African bookings have grown by 25%. Just think about that, 25% growth for Royal Caribbean from the South African market. But get this, With higher than average onboard spend and a strong appetite for premium experiences, South African guests are among the most valued globally. In fact, South Africa is the third largest market to date for Legend of the Seas, and interest continues to grow. Now, this is up against matured cruising markets like the United States and Europe, and I think China is also playing a big role here. So for South Africa to be hitting way above its weight is quite impressive. And further still, South Africa also dominates the meetings, incentives, and events space when it comes to the cruising industry. So I decided to chat to event organizer Linda van Beek at Royal Caribbean Cruises, represented by Cruises International, to get some further insights.
Royal Caribbean is literally known for its mega ships. When you speak and think Royal Caribbean, it's loud, it's colorful, it's vibrant, and it's adventure and family.
It's quite a mass market ship offering. I mean, you've got, like you say, the biggest ships in the ocean at the moment. You're launching another big one later this year. I think it's in July.
Yes, 100%.
It's clearly targeting a family experience. What are some of those unique features that make the ship so unique?
When we talk about family, we talk about all the different ages that we want to be looking at. And the one thing that Royal Caribbean is known for besides its mega ships is its mega slides. We have got the biggest slides in the world on cruise liners to date. So that's what we're known for, besides all the fun and all the color and the groups and the big families that come on board. It's just fun adventure.
What are some of the main ports that you're sailing out of at the moment for 2026?
We've got Legend of the Seas that's going to be launching, and that's for a first-time Icon class ship that's going to be launching from as Barcelona, Spain. So we are going to be focusing a lot on the Mediterranean this coming season. And on that note, Italy is going to be a lot of we've got Rome, we've got Ravenna as well. And then we've also got our Santorini Beach Club that's going to be launching as well in the Med. So that's very exciting for us. So hence the focus.
So a big focus on the Mediterranean,
100%.
A very popular destination for South
It
Africans. What else are you seeing in terms of South Africans' interest in terms of the cruise space?
In terms of cruise space and the interest in travel for South Africans, we're finding that the East is also really coming up. Your Hong Kong, Singapore areas are coming up because on most of those, if you're holding a South African passport, you don't need a visa. And so that is something that you don't really need to worry about. And also the space, the timelines, the cost of that is really a lot less because you've got the destinations that are going to be coming in your 3-nighter, 4-nighter, and post-cruise and pre-cruise holidays as well that you could also just slot in there. So hence that's why we're finding that those destinations are coming up quite strong.
For those in the cruise industry know that one cruise is not like another cruise. It's not like maybe hotels or airlines where it feels like same but different. How do you feel the Royal Caribbean product sits within the market for people playing with the idea of wanting to go on a cruise but have never really sort of ventured into that space?
Where Royal Caribbean really fits in the market at the moment is that, look, we've got a lot of, I always say there's room for everybody. And if you've done something local, then it gives you a taster, like you've mentioned, you know what cruising is about, and now you're going on and experiencing something different because we don't do anything local, it is international. And with that said, there's the special offerings like our cruise liners have actually got the promenade view, which other cruise liners don't have. So it's not really same experience for all. You do have the different aspects of it. The food, you're not going to find the same food on the cruise liners, So in terms of that, there are different variances. It depends on what you're looking for. Itinerary-wise, there are itineraries that some cruise liners touch and ours don't, or ours do and others don't.
Because you've got very big ships, so they can't always stop at every single port. They need specific size ports to operate in, which is fair enough.
But on that note, in terms of our size and our ships, we've got 7 different classes of ship. Our smaller ship has got a capacity of about 2,000. So if you are looking for a more intimate cruise and you're not looking at going on the mega, then there is that option as well. And the smaller ships also do get the opportunity to go into our smaller ports where the bigger ships don't go. That's why I'm saying you're spoiled for choice, really. So if you're looking for itinerary, smaller ship. If you're looking for adventure and the ship as a destination, then you're going on to our mega ships, which is our Icon class.
In terms of the growth of South Africans traveling for cruising, what are you seeing in terms of that growth?
There's lots of, even if you had to talk to anyone here in terms of growth when it comes to cruising, we have got a massive interest coming in on cruising at the moment. And the reason is, I think people are they're realizing now that it is the best way to travel in terms of safety, for one. In terms of affordability, for two. Because where are you going to go and get a holiday where you've got entertainment, you've got food, you've got accommodation covered in one price? You know, usually when you do travel, you find that you've got to pay for your entertainment separately, or you've got to pay for your food, or you only get breakfast and you don't get dinner. You know, so on that note, people are now becoming more aware of the fact that it is cost effective, you know, for them, and it is really safe.
What is maybe a big tip that you've got for people wanting to cruise in 2026?
A big tip that I do want to make everyone aware of is that, guys, you can plan. We have in cruising, we have got itinerary set out until 2028. So if you have got the opportunity to actually book your cruise now, put a deposit down and pace yourself and plan yourself and ease that pressure. You know, you don't have to necessarily do it now, and because it can be pricey for some. And that's the nice thing, is that the market is for everybody, because we actually now accommodate everyone to say, pay a little bit now and then pace yourself and plan for when you're ready.
That was Linda van Beek, Business Development Manager for Royal Caribbean Cruises, represented by Cruises International here in South Africa, giving us a quick overview of the latest ship to set sail later this year, and more details up on the Sandton Times website as well. And with that, we're at the end of this week's hour. Feel free to send through your questions or comments. You can also email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. Connect on social media @Sandton Times. Hop onto the website sandtontimes.co.za. And also save the WhatsApp number 084 Sandton. That's the exclusive Sandton Times WhatsApp number 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes, text messages, and more. And obviously, if you're overseas and not in South Africa, just slap a +27 in front of that number. So it's 2784 726 3866. As always, make sure to subscribe to the podcast as well on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and other leading digital audio platforms. You can join the growing community there. Thank you to all my guests who made time to be on the show this week, as well as the team behind the scenes, making sure that we sound good. It's always appreciated. A special thank you to you for listening, and God willing, we'll do it all again next week.